All right, well, let's get more on the breaking news that Leicester have appointed Steve Cooper as their new manager on a 3-year contract. We can head live to the King Power Stadium now, where our reporter Kirsty Edwards is. Morning, Kirsty. So Leicester took their time, but they've finally got their man, haven't they?
They certainly have. Yeah, they took their time. I think they wanted this process to be thorough, and they didn't want to rush into things. They were really disappointed when Enzo Maresca left after getting them back up into the Premier League for the first time of asking. He, of course, has now departed for Chelsea. Managers like Carlos Corberán were looked at, were admired. Of course, there were talks with Graham Potter, but I think issues on both sides with regards to him. But Steve Cooper was somebody who showed real enthusiasm for this job from the off, and I think that really sort of sung to them, that they liked the fact that he was really keen to take on this challenge, and it will of course be a challenge. He has put out a statement today about his arrival here. He says, you know, I'm really excited and proud to be appointed Leicester City's first team manager. This is a fantastic club with a rich history and passionate supporters. I'm excited to work with such a talented squad, and I'm looking forward to the challenge of achieving our shared ambitions in the Premier League. He talks about that challenge, and there is one here. We know the issues they've had. They've got the threat of this points deduction coming up this season, and perhaps more. There is the talk that they may have to sell somebody like Kiernan Dewsbury Hall this month to avoid another issue in terms of the financial restrictions on them. We'll have to wait and see on that, but that is something he could face, certainly, and this threat of a points deduction. But you know, he comes from a club in Nottingham Forest where they had their own challenges, and he always faced that head on, so I'm sure he'll be looking to do the same here at Leicester City.
Yeah, you mentioned the fact that Cooper was most recently managing Leicester's rivals Nottingham Forest. What do you think the reaction will be amongst Leicester fans?
Yeah, it's an interesting one, isn't it? I think it will be very mixed, and it always is, isn't it? When a new manager comes in, there will be some Leicester City fans who will just say, look, he's our manager now, let's get right behind him. There will be others who won't like the link to Forest, their East Midlands rivals, and they may take some convincing, and of course the only way to do that is to wait until the season starts and to see what kind of football they're playing and the kind of results he might produce. But look, you know, we've seen in the past other managers, other players doing that crossover. Martin O'Neill became a legend here. Wes Morgan came over from Forest as a player, and we all saw what he went on to do. You know, he was the captain of the Premier League winning side here. He was a huge part of what was the biggest part in their history. So others have done it before and won fans over. Steve Cooper is a manager that gets a really good connection with fans. He certainly did at Nottingham Forest anyway. They loved him there. He kind of had a lot of time for the fans there. He had a lot of time for the club's history, which they liked, and he's talked about Leicester's history here as well. And he also did so much work behind the scenes that perhaps people didn't see, but the work he put in trying to develop their training ground, for example. You know, there was a lot of work to be done at Forest, and then of course on the pitch we saw what he did in terms of taking over a side that was bottom of the championship, and he instilled a belief into the players and some real confidence into the players and led them to promotion. What an unbelievable promotion it was for them at the first time of asking, given where they were. And then of course he managed to keep them up against a lot of people's expectations in that first season, given the huge rebuild they'd gone through and all the players that were kind of thrown his way during that season. And he kept them up at the expense, of course, of Leicester City. So I think, you know, Leicester fans perhaps may look at the end of his time at Forest and the results that were going against them then. But when they dig a little deeper, they might look at the way that he kind of a couple of times in that first season in the Premier League, you know, there was a lot of talk about him getting the sack, given their results, but he always managed to turn things around that season. And as I say, he did eventually keep them up.
Kirsty, thank you very much.